Hello and welcome to this edition of the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show. Well, I know this is the first weekend after the election, and I know you thought we were going to, unpack it, do all those things that we would normally do after an election. But here's the deal. You know, just like I do, it was taking forever to find out who won. So, because we tape our show early, it wasn't quite clear who was going to actually be the president come January 21st. So I decided we'll save that conversation for next week. But there is an issue that I wanted to spend some time with. We've been kind of skirting around it, and that is the issue of organizations within our community that have been looking for ways to not only stay open, but thrive during the pandemic. And how do you do that? Well, believe it or not, you can do that through getting support from our community with the help of an organization called POISE. Well, you know the POISE Foundation. They've been on the show many times, but you may not know about this particular project of POISE. So I'm thrilled to be able to give you some insight into what they've been doing. So joining me for today's conversation, Tracy Johnson, who is the program officer from POISE, and two local organizations that have been working with POISE and have really been able to take advantage of kind of this new project. Pastor Eric Yule is with Divine Restoration Church in Duquesne. We'll get some insight into what's been going on out at Duquesne and the grant he's been able to receive. And Lakeisha Wolf, who is with the Ultima Collective in the Hill District. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you for having us.
And Tracy, I'm going to start with you because I think that we've done a million segments, interviews around POISE Foundation. But what you guys are doing now, that this is an offshoot of the pandemic, but it really is kind of a different approach for the foundation.
Yes, it is. When the pandemic first hit and everything began to shut down, we initially thought that maybe it would be a 2 week and then maybe a month, but all the while thinking about organizations, Black-led, Black-serving organizations in the communities that, and how were they getting along and would they be able to be financially solvent through the pandemic. And so all of those questions, and we were having all of those behind the scenes discussions. And so with, some assistance from the rest of the foundation world in Pittsburgh, we were able to launch the Critical Community Needs Fund to really focus on those small to medium-sized Black-led, Black-serving organizations in Allegheny and Beaver County, interestingly enough. And so we decided to put together a grant strategy to make grants available up to $25,000 for organizations that were providing emergency services and critical needs that members of the community needed done, because a lot of our people, a lot of our African-American Black immigrant people are frontline workers. And so a lot of them were, unemployed at the time, or, trying to maintain employment. Kids were at home. And so those families, those communities really needed support. And so we made this grant available again to those small to medium-sized Black-led, Black-serving organizations with budgets of $600,000 or less, staff members of 10 or less. They were able to apply. And we made the application super simple. So it was a big shift in our normal application process. It was a shift in the amounts that we usually provide to organizations. And then we had like a 1 week turnaround for decisions. And so we were bringing together our distribution committee every week to make decisions on grants. And we also wanted to make this open to our Black churches. A lot of times we don't realize that, our Black churches and mosques are they were like the first nonprofits in so many ways. And so we wanted to be able to be inclusive of the faith-based community, because a lot of times they are, the front line of needs in communities. Sure. And so if you have a need, you go to the church or you go to the mosque and you're trying to get support. And a lot of times, because they're faith-based organizations and, and don't, it's like, okay, well, where's your 501c3 paperwork? Even though they are, charitable organizations by the federal government, they are often overlooked for funding.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to make sure that we could make that available to them.
So then, before we take our first commercial break, let me reach out to the other two guests. And Lakeisha, tell me about. I mean, when you first heard. Well, first of all, let's talk about who the collective is. I mean, I've known about the collective for years,
Mhm.
but tell our viewers who the collective is.
Sure. So, Ujima, we are a group of Black women. We're actually in our 10-year anniversary. Most folks
Wow.
know us because we operate a cooperative retail boutique in the historic Hill District and have
Hmm.
been doing that for 10 years. But we are a collective of Black women who are artists, creative business owners, entrepreneurs. And so we essentially work together to do placemaking, to work together to build our businesses, to profit from them together, to make sure that we're able to bring quality products to our community, and we just really serve a number of different um, needs that our community has. So when the pandemic hit us, as a retail store, we were forced to shut down. And so, immediately, the thought was like, oh, we're not going to be able to serve
Wow.
all of the artists whose work is in our shop.
Hmm.
So that was my first concern, was, because a lot of these, which are primarily Black women, but all of these Black artists, all of these Black makers, and we have makers who are based from the Hill, but across Pittsburgh and the region, but also internationally. So, we were thinking like, wow, we're not going to be able to, be able to provide income
Right.
for hundreds of people. That was our first thought. The second thought was, you know, that even though that's kind of the primary thing people know we do, we also know that our space is very much a refuge
Hmm.
within the Hill District. And so, holding space is something that's really important to us. Um, and so, thinking about all of the stress, all of the sort of increased mental health concerns that the pandemic had, schools being shut down.
Hmm.
I'm a mom of two young people, and so, you know, it was hard for everybody. And so I was just, thinking about all of the people whose lives were going to be impacted by us not being there and not being available. But what happened for us was that whenever we did shut down and we did some wellness checks on all of our vendors, all of our members. But then what happened is, actually another funder reached out to us, who specifically works in the Hill District. And because Governor Wolf had made the mandate that folks needed to wear face masks in
Right.
public. And so it kind of hit us like, okay, what are we going to do? And what I had immediately saw was that a lot of folks were handing out masks for free, right? That you had a lot of these larger businesses and folks who are in a better position and more resourced
Hmm.
to do that work. And so for us, it was like, how are we going to do that? But then this funder reached out and said, well, we'll offer you a small grant if you can organize some of your artists to sew 500 masks
Ah,
for
okay.
the community. And so when I reached out to some other folks, who were doing some direct service in the Hill District, the need was so great
Hmm.
that once POISE said that they had this fund available, I was like, we're going to have to do more than 500 masks.
We
And
got to put it
so
together. Hold that
it's,
thought for just a
yeah,
second. We
sure.
got to take a commercial break. I promise, Pastor, I'm coming to you when we get back, when we come back after the break. We'll take a break and come right back.